Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Matters That Matter. This is the second podcast, and I have a great pleasure having Iskandar, also another longtime friend of mine. Um, and I will let him introduce himself. And I have no idea what we're talking about today, so I'll let him also talk about the matter that he would like to discuss, converse about today with me, and have an interesting conversation. Thank you very much, Iskandar, for agreeing on such a short notice, and I very much look forward to um, gaining from your wisdom today. Thank you. Over to you.
Hello. Thank you very much for your invitation, Inayat. I'm really pleased to be here and now. Speaking about myself, my name is Iskandar. Uh, I'm an English teacher. Technically, I have been teaching English since 2000. However, as a graduate teacher with a diploma, I have been a teacher since 2003. So, roughly, I have got around 20 years of experience in teaching English. At the moment,
Mhm.
I am engaged in a school specializing in mathematics in Andijan. And of course, there I teach English. Additionally, I have got my language learning center where I teach English as well.
Great. What is is there a name or the number of the specialized school? Math.
Yes, it is specialized school number one.
Ah, okay.
Actually,
Okay.
the history of this school is rather dramatic because first it
Uh-huh.
was opened as the first academic lyceum at Andijan State Pedagogical Institute of Languages in 2005. Then Andijan State University ceased to exist. I mean, Andijan State Institute of Foreign Languages ceased to exist in 2010, and then it became Lyceum number four at Andijan State University. And then in
Mm,
2018, there was another reform, and many other academic lyceums ceased to exist along with mine, and that school, that
mm,
lyceum was turned into school number 13, specializing in foreign languages. And then in 2022, another dramatic change took place, and then now it is specialized school number one, and I don't know when things will change next time.
indeed, very sad also. Changes are good, but not as much when it's happening as if it's an experiment in education sector. That hurts. It's about
Last
students,
year,
teachers. Mm-hmm.
last year we were literally kicked out of the building. It was
Mm-hmm.
the second day of Eid al-Fitr, Eid Ramadan,
Oh,
and
uh-huh.
everyone was in a festive mood. And I received a call
Oh,
from my director who said, like, we are moving. So I had lots of equipment of my own
mm-hmm.
in that building
Mm-hmm.
because I used it in order to teach English. And I was told to take all my stuff out of the building within a day. That
Mm-hmm.
was
I remember
rather
you
sad.
posting. Right, right. I
Yeah.
remember you posting about this. Was the building taken over by the agency for specialized school, if
Yes,
I
yes, yes. This was
correct?
the case. Well, actually, it was taken over by the agency. I have nothing
Mhm.
against the agency. However, the way teachers and students were treated, I disliked it very much because we were given just literally 12-hour notice,
Oh, mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that we were very much taken aback in that situation. And well, we managed and we coped with the problem in that situation. However, it
Right.
was very unpleasant to find
Of
out that
course,
your opinions don't count. You don't
of
matter.
course, of course. What is in that place now? What school is
Yeah, it is
located
the
now?
still it is the school where I am working now. It's specialized
Ah,
school number one.
okay, under
you
the
know
agency.
uh, you know Henry Kissinger, the outstanding state secretary of the United States of
Mhm,
America, and
mhm,
everyone said about him like presidents come and go and Kissinger stays. So
mhm, mhm. So
I
you are
have
just
a
like him.
similar fate, right? The different institutions come and go, and I
Uh-huh.
stay in that building. I've been there since 2006.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So what was the major shock? Did the students have to leave? The teachers have to leave somewhere else?
The
But you're saying
what kind
they
of
you
wisdom?
stayed.
Well, in at the beginning of, sorry.
You said you stayed. What changed then? If you stayed, if it's the same
Well,
school.
I just stayed as a teacher, as a regular teacher.
Ah, I see. I see. Okay.
So
Yes.
in the names of institutions or the functions of the institutions kept changing. However, they stayed at schools. I mean, uh, all the time it was an educational institution. So a teacher is always needed in an educational institution.
Of course. Of
So I
course.
just chose to stay there.
I see. And then you have your own learning center as well, where you teach
Yes.
part time, I believe. So that's great. And you're an author of how many books now?
Six. And right now,
Wow.
at present, I'm working on the seventh one. And
Congratulations. Wow.
thank you very much.
It's
And
amazing.
when it is good enough to show to other people, I hope you will also be able to give some of your precious mind, because
Of
I
course, I would
want
love
it to
to.
be a really good piece, and I mean a really good piece of work. And I would appreciate feedback from people who are expert in English.
Oh, you got it. I'm really not an expert, but I would love to, especially not
Yeah,
in
I mean,
English, but I
you
would
have
love.
teaching background, and you yourself
Yes, that's true.
use
That's
English
true.
professionally. So when
That's
you
true.
have a look at
Yes.
the book, you can just say, okay, this is a good point, or you could change this, or we don't need that, and things
Absolutely.
like that.
I would love to. That's the deal then. I'll be waiting for the
Yeah.
announcement. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
It will be announced on Facebook.
Super. Super. Great. So I'll find out. So what are we talking about today?
Whatever you want. Shall we talk about books?
Let's do that. Writing a book. Maybe you could inspire me to finally um take over my project that I started several years ago but never finished. And
Which
please,
is
your
what kind of
journey.
project is that?
The book, writing a book, it's a children's story in English
Hmm.
based on my own kids' experiences,
Okay.
journeys, their activities while growing
Mm-hmm.
up. And I finished about 11, 12 stories, I believe. It's supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
chapter books, and um, I even had it proofread by one
Mm-hmm.
person, but then I have to uh, illustrations. Illustrating a book is
Mm-hmm.
the what got me stuck, and plus
Okay.
the authorship. The what would you call it? Not the authorship. The um,
Copyright.
copyright. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
But then I
So
realized there are other ways to do it. You just publish it, and that means you
yeah,
publish it and you have the copyright. I didn't
yeah.
know at that time. So,
Well, actually, in Uzbekistan, it costs about 300,000 soms to register
uh-huh,
yourself as an author, and I mean, it doesn't take too much. And if you want, I can help you with illustrations, because I've got a very good friend who works for Akadem Nasher, and she's a professional illustrator, and she
uh-huh,
specifically specializes in illustrating books. And as we have come to the topic of children's books, a few
uh-huh.
years ago, my elder son's book was published. Uh,
I
uh,
remember, yes, you mentioned
yeah,
it.
and it
Yeah.
was he was the author. I was just the
Uh-huh,
inspirer of that project,
uh-huh,
and of course, I was the sponsor. And it is
uh-huh.
also available in English on Amazon. So uh, this
Yes.
little kid came up with some ideas, and I just said, why don't you organize them in a book? Well, it's not a
Uh-huh.
book in a proper sense, but it's like
Oh,
compilation of
still,
little
still.
stories. Yeah. However,
Of
yeah,
course,
for a
it's
10
it's
year old ten
admirable.
year old boy, that's not too bad at all. So
Of course, it's admirable. Yes,
yeah,
definitely. We will talk definitely separately, hopefully, to get some more detailed
yeah,
information from you, like specifically about my project. But if you
yes.
could maybe walk us through how you did it, maybe in general terms,
Mm-hmm.
where you started, what the challenges
Okay.
were.
Yeah.
So apparently you work with Akadem Nasher, but also
Yes.
maybe a little bit about how your project with your boys publishing
Mm-hmm.
his book went and placing it
Okay.
on Amazon, lessons learned, challenges. I'm sure people would love to learn more. I would love
Okay.
to. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. So, first of all, the most important thing is to find something which is yours. For example, I believe that English, like teaching English, learning English, and stuff like that, is mine. And you must also make sure that when the book is ready, you must be able to market it. And there must be some demand for that book. Otherwise, it will be just an expense and maybe unnecessary expense. So, the point to begin with is to find your own passion, let's say so. And for example, when I wrote my very first book in 2015, which is called in Uzbek Sözyotlar Sırları, which means the secrets of learning vocabulary,
Hmm.
I had a real problem with my students learning new words, and I really struggled with that. And I had lots of ideas in my mind about how to learn vocabulary effectively. However, those knowledges were not organized, they were chaotic. So I just thought, why not make it a small book? And it turned out to be a book of around 128 pages. It's just a small book. And I wrote that book in cooperation with Shahrukh Rahmanov, who is an expert in mnemonics. So Shahrukh
Yeah.
Rahmanov provided the information from his side about the methods of learning words using mnemonics. And on my side, I provided knowledge and expertise in linguistics and pedagogy. So we combined and we wrote that book. And the initial publication was 3,000 copies, and it was very successful. We sold it out quite soon. Then Academ Nasher was interested in that book, and we made a contract for 10,000 copies. It was a couple of years ago. And I have, well, actually, Shahrukh was, as he had better contacts with Academ Nasher, Shahrukh was managing the second edition, and the second edition also came out, and now it's available in bookshops. So the thing is, first you find your topic, what to write about, and then you make sure that people are
Hmm.
interested in that topic, and then you begin to write. And the writing process depends on your free time, on your energy, on your
Hmm.
motivation. And for example, it may take from a few months, maybe some years. For example, of course,
Right.
we are not writing, I mean, I am not writing a masterpiece, but just to compare, Wolfgang Goethe wrote his Faust during 60 years, so he wrote it most of his life.
Wow.
Or
Wow.
this James Joyce's most famous novel, Ulysse, it was written during 14 years. So these are very long books.
Hmm. Hmm.
However, in our case, I mean, in my case, in your case, it may take from a few months to a few years. It depends again.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when the
It's
writing
still a creative
process, it's
process, even if you're not writing, like you said.
yeah, of course. I
Uh,
mean, yeah,
it's
apart
still
from
still
technically
artwork.
sitting and writing, you
Right.
brainstorm, you analyze,
Hmm.
you make research. So I also believe that it counts as a writing process because when you are, for
Of
example,
course.
let me take this example, my most recent work. I am writing about IELTS writing test, and I'm writing in Uzbek. Why right now? Because right now there is a huge amount of literature available in the market in printed form, in online or e-versions. However, all of them are in English. So I just decided to make everything understandable to the Uzbek reader. And when I began to write, I got stuck. I just made a plan for myself, like I must write at least 3 pages per day, and then I will complete in 3 months roughly. So when I began to
Mm-hmm.
write, I got stuck. Why? Because I didn't have a structure yet. So it took me a few days, I think 3 or 4 days, to figure out the structure. So what I mean is that writing is not just literally typing or writing. Brainstorming,
Mm-hmm.
organizing, maybe discussing, maybe researching, all of these things can be classified as writing. So after you have done the writing, when the copy is ready, then of course it is time to edit it, because beginning with small spelling mistakes and punctuation, there will be definitely some stylistic mistakes, some redundancies, some repetitions,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc., or there may be some inconsistencies, and all of these things need working at. And of course, at that point, friends or people who know this area very well may come very handy. So first of all,
Mm-hmm.
they will have some contribution to your work, which is good for them as well, because you can indicate their
Right.
names in your acknowledgments or things like that. So the point is that you have to have someone else other than yourself look at your work, because there are some mistakes, there are some things which you miss yourself, which you fail to see as an author. However, when other people look at your work, they can notice such shortages very easily. So this is the point when you get editing. And when you are through this process, then you decide, are you going to sponsor yourself, or are you going to work with a publishing house, or are you going to attract some investor? In the first case, when you want to sponsor yourself, right now, just taking into account all the prices, etc., you need around $3,000 to publish 1,000 copies. Of course, it depends on the volume of your book. It depends how many pages there are. Right now, when
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about $3,000, I mean like about 250, 300 page books. So, say if your book is 250 pages long, then you have to have $3,000, because the more copies you print, the cheaper per copy you get. And of course, you can print like 100 copies, you can print 500 copies, but they will be relatively more expensive per copy. So the best idea for the beginning is 1,000, because it is a large number enough to publish it like cheaply per copy. And again, it is not too much. Like
How
it's
many
not too
pages are
much.
we talking about?
1,000 copies,
No, what about pages?
300.
Okay, 300 pages,
Yeah, and
1,000 copies,
yes, and of
$3,000.
course, this price may vary according to the quality of the paper, whether your book is colored or monochrome, like black or white, and etc., etc. And of course, printing prices exclude book cover and illustrations, so you have to pay the illustrator separately.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Mm-hmm.
may come to around 3,500. Dollars until you get those 1,000 copies in your hand. And the main disadvantage of being a self-sponsored author is that you have to make lots of expenses. However, you get all the rewards. And you can, I mean, as you have all those 1,000 copies at your own disposal, you are the one to set the price and you are the one to
Mm-hmm.
sell. So whether you fail
Mm-hmm.
or whether you gain, both come to you. And
Mm-hmm. And you choose the
yeah.
channels of sales, whichever channel you
Yeah,
want
of
to
course.
use,
And
right?
here again, having a good network of friends comes also handy. And
Right.
I should also
Or,
say that
mhm.
uh, popularity on social networks is also handy. For example, when I published my book about English grammar, I myself published 600 copies in Andijan, and within a month I sold about 600 copies. So I just gave
Mhm.
announcement through my Facebook, and lots of friends from Facebook got interested in that book and they just asked for a copy. So that was quite good.
Yeah, but
And
also would assume your students, right? They're already
of course, yes, but
your
actually,
your
I
market.
gave those books to my students as gifts. I didn't sell them.
Ah, wow,
I just
wow.
gave them as gifts, yes, because I just wanted to show them
I see.
they are lucky enough to be my students, you know.
That's
And
amazing.
yes, so this is self sponsoring. If you make a contract with a publishing house, of course you are not responsible for anything. You just provide the text and that's it. They work on the cover, they work on the illustrations, they work on everything. However, you get paid very little. And of course, as they distribute the book through their own channels, it may not be as fast as yours. So the advantage of working with a publishing house is that you spend nothing. You just work on the text and that's it, you are done. However, the disadvantage is that if you get paid any, you will get paid very little, because you know that reading book is not very popular in Uzbekistan,
Right,
unfortunately. And
right.
even if the publishing house agrees to publish your book, maybe in order to make it sell, you have to market it yourself, maybe at least even through the social networks or friends networks or
You have to help them.
yes. So
Hmm.
this is the second option. Third option is when you attract an investor, then again, you will be responsible for the text only, and all the other expenses will be met by the investor. However, in that case, the main disadvantage is that that investor may claim a large portion of your benefit or profit. So it depends on what kind of investor you talk to, and maybe if you are lucky, then you can just get what you want. For example, right now I am not selling my grammar book, but I talked to my one of my friends who agreed to sponsor me. So I don't care about anything. He does everything like publishing, marketing, selling, and shipping, shipment, etc., etc. And I just get 10,000 sums per copy.
That's very
So
little.
like,
Yes.
if yeah, but he takes lots of risks and he has lots of expenditure, and
True.
therefore, like, I just decided, okay, do it. So I didn't have that money to spend on those things. So again, just to recapitulate, you have these three options: self sponsoring, or working with a publishing house, or finding an investor. And of course, you can choose.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for breaking this down. What about that? What you mentioned earlier, copyright, and you said you would have to register yourself as an author, and through which organization entity would that be?
Okay, if you are in Uzbekistan, at the Cabinet of Ministers, Vazirlar Mahkamasi, there is an office called Intellektual Mülkni Himoya Qilish Agentligi, the Agency
Isn't
of
it
Protecting
under
Intellectual
Ministry of?
Property.
Isn't it under the Ministry of Justice?
Well, to my best knowledge, I
Okay,
heard it was at the Cabinet of Ministers. However, I mean, it's a point which can be easily clarified. So,
sure,
uh,
sure.
the the bottom line is that when your product is ready, for example, you are writing a
Mhm,
book, and when the text is ready, you take that text to that place with your old documents like passport and stuff, and you pay that fee, around
uh-huh,
$300,000 sums, and then your name and your work gets registered in connection to each other. So whoever
mhm,
copies or reproduces or plagiarizes that piece of work can be legally sued on your behalf or by yourself.
understood. Um, and you mentioned your son's book and this going to Amazon. Could you please share a little bit of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, uh, my son collected a series of stories by himself, and the general name of for the book was My Dreams, meaning Arzularım. And I told him, well, actually, he wrote it on a notebook. And I said, just for him to gain some typing skills, I said, why don't you type it as a Word file? and he finished it.
Mhm.
And then I said, okay, why don't we add some illustrations, because there are some stories where there are pictures of like robots or beautiful places or games he plays, etc. And I tried to copy paste some images from Google, and that looked really ugly. And I said, why don't we just work a little bit on the text? And my wife is a master of science in Uzbek philology, so she's really good at Uzbek, and
Mm,
she did some editing, so it was a sort of family project. She did some editing,
mhm,
and the text was fine. And then I found this, as I mentioned earlier, I found this specialist from Akadem Nasher, and I asked her to draw some illustrations for the book, and I asked her to draw around six. And when she read that book, she said, like, the book is so absorbing that I decided to draw 12 pictures for the price of six. And I said,
mm,
okay, be my guest. So
mhm.
the book was published, and the very first 1,000 copies were sold at once. There was this
Wow.
charity on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr, on Ramadan Hayat, and
Uh-huh.
some benefactors decided to give those copies to children along with other presents on that beautiful day. And the
Wow.
first 1,000 copies were sold at once. However, well, actually, we published 2,000 copies. So the latter 1,000 copies have been sold, but not as successfully, maybe because lack of
Mm,
marketing. I just mentioned it on Facebook once, and I didn't make any effort to proliferate the information. So the rest of them are, how can I say, we are keeping it at home right now. And I say to my son, don't worry, when you become a really great man in future, it will be a very expensive item as the very first work by you, which was published. So just keep it. And one
mhm,
of my friends has contacts in the USA with publishing houses in the USA, and he's a very good translator. And he said like, now there is a great demand for children's books on Amazon, so why don't we translate it into
mhm,
English? And he was responsible for the expenses related with the English translation, so they translated it into English, and then they began to sell it. Unfortunately, I'm not very well aware of what are the things like in on Amazon. I mean, how many copies have been sold, etc., because we lost contacts with that friend due to certain circumstances. So right now I don't know what is happening to the English copy. However, there is a link on Amazon. If anyone wants to purchase it in English, it's available.
Perfect. I will. I was searching for it, couldn't locate it. But if you could send it to me, I will place it under the description section of
Yeah,
our
I
talk.
have an
So
Amazon link. I later after the meeting I will send it
super,
through Telegram to you. Yes.
super. Thank you very much. You know, when I started my book, writing my book, what seemed very appealing to me was this online publishing, and
Mm-hmm.
Amazon acquired it. I believe it was called Create Space. If I'm not mistaken,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon acquired it. It was an amazing platform. It probably works the same on Amazon. I haven't researched since recently, but um, so you place your text, and then
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't charge you anything. It charges you only, and then you put a price tag on it. You
Mm-hmm.
maybe 5.99 is the price, and then you order as many as you want, and they will print it for you on demand. You could order
Mm-hmm.
like 10 of them, even 100
Mm-hmm.
of them. Doesn't have to be 1,000 like they do with the publishing house. It's because it's such a large system that
Mm-hmm.
it's okay for them business wise to
Mm-hmm.
copy to publish as little as 10 or even 2. And then it's the same thing. People order, they can order one, they just put their profit margin, this publishing online publishing
Mm-hmm.
place, and they just mail it. They
Mm-hmm.
put a profit margin, they say okay, 5.99 is yours, but will be So 599 is the final price, but we take, I don't know, 20% of this and the rest
Hmm.
goes into your account. I thought this was an amazing idea because you don't spend anything really. You don't have
Hmm.
an expense. And then I was hoping something like this would be available in Uzbekistan, but unfortunately I don't see it
No,
happening.
unfortunately, it is not available in Uzbekistan at all. And it is amazing
Mm.
if you manage to cooperate with Amazon because it literally covers, say, the whole developed world, right? And
Mm-hmm.
but in order to cope with that situation, I mean, your work must be in English and it must be interesting enough. However, if you manage to cope with that, then you will be able to sell literally millions of your work. So even if you make your price like 199, it will pay you off very well. But if you are writing in Uzbek, fortunately or unfortunately, the only options are those which I have already mentioned. And there is one more thing. If you might inquire about that. Now, printing prices in Uzbekistan have gone up so much that some
Mm-hmm.
publishing houses are importing Uzbek books from Turkey. I mean, they are publishing
Right.
in Turkey and
I
then
heard of it.
bringing them to
Mm-hmm.
Uzbekistan because printing work is much cheaper in Turkey because we have
Right,
all
right.
these like taxes and other expenses imposed on
Mhm.
printing machines and paper and color and everything else.
Yes, I know recently Asahi, I think they used the same service. I did the same. They did the same with their latest book about this um, Tanazzulge Çüregen Davlatlar. What's the English name for it?
Yes, yes. Why
That,
nations fail, right? The
exactly,
Uzbek
Why
version.
Nations Fail.
Yeah.
I Uzbek version, yes, I think that's what the owner of Asahi was talking
So
about. That
if you
it was
think
late.
that your book is if you think that your book is good enough, you may talk to Asahi because they are sort of avant-garde of publishing business in Uzbekistan, and maybe
Mhm.
they will be able to appreciate your work. And Asahi Uz, thanks to its marketing, has become more popular than any other publishing house right now because its
True.
head and authors are very how can I say active in marketing what they are doing. So maybe if your work is a good one, I hope you will let
Hmm.
me read a raw copy. And if it is a good one, then why not? Because if it's something good, then it should be shared to people.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Thank you so much. I think it's also because they are marketplace. They
Yes,
combined
yes, yes, yes,
marketing and writing and translating work with technology, so it helped them
yes.
immensely.
So they
That's
have
another
a
thing.
sort of cluster, and it is much better
Yeah,
than the publishing house which only publishes. So
right.
if you have
Very
if you have
interesting.
friends or if you have any contacts with Asahi, you might talk to
Hmm.
them. Well, I don't have direct contacts, but I have some friends who are
Hmm.
very good friends with Asahi. So I mean, if it's necessary, I might help you to
Thank you.
find contacts with them.
Thank you very much. You're on the record, so I am in contact with the owner, but yes, it's I have to do the first steps first. What you mentioned earlier
No, okay.
about the copyright, the illustration, definitely I will ask you about that.
Hmm.
What about your next upcoming book? Are you doing? Oh, you said
You
you're
mean the
doing
one
the
I'm
sponsor.
working on right now?
You said you found a sponsor and you'll be getting 10,000 some out of that. That's what you said, right?
Yes. So
Mm-hmm. That's good.
the book which I'm working with a sponsor is
Mm-hmm.
the one which is called Saddalaştırılan İngiliz Dili Gramatikası. So simplified English grammar. And this book is selling well. How can I say? It's not great. However, it's okay. Like every month, like around 200, 300 copies are sold every month,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Do you did you have sold uh, in stores like conventional way? in markets,
No,
or was it all
I
word of mouth?
didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all more word of mouth because uh, I have no time and no desire just to walk, you know. You
Mm-hmm.
have to
Mm-hmm.
literally walk. I mean, in order to distribute your books to bookstores, you have to just
Mm-hmm.
walk, or you have to hire someone and then again to pay him. So it's much easier for me just to put an announcement on Facebook or on Telegram, and people just come themselves and pick them up, which is
Mm-hmm.
a much more convenient method of selling for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
You, mm-hmm. Please
yeah,
go on.
speaking about the book which I am working on right now, I am planning to finish it. Maybe I will have finished it by the end of December, hopefully. And again, I'm first of all, I will use my personal network to make it sell as much as possible. And then, well, of course, it will be self sponsored at this time because I hope I will have that money to publish it in 1,000 copies, and I will be self-sponsored. So first of all, I'm going to use my personal network, and then I'm going to advertise
Mm-hmm.
through influencers. Of course, it
Mm.
will not be those stupid wines shown by these actors,
Not
but
Instagram.
I'm going.
Uh,
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, of course, and not TikTok,
mm,
definitely. And
right. Uh-huh.
I'm going to address like intellectual influencers who have
Mm-hmm.
lots of followers, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get some credentials from high-profile English teachers, both in Uzbekistan and abroad. And when all with all these credentials and with good quality of work, I hope those influencers will be able to advertise it. Of course, for money. It's not just for good work, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully yes, that will help to popularize that book, I think.
Mm-hmm. Very helpful. Thank you so much. Before I'll ask you my last question,
Uh-huh.
since my book is in English, that type of online uh, distribution, online publishing would work best for me because my target audience is children who live overseas, really, like
Mm-hmm.
who are interested in Uzbekistan, who are not necessarily just Uzbeks who immigrated, but anyone who's interested in Uzbekistan. So that would work best for me. But it's very good to know um, the details of doing something locally as well. For me,
Yeah.
I must be a pessimist. My question is also stems from it, because to me it would seem so complicated. I have to think over the details 100 times, but you made it sound so simple. I'm sure you inspired many. Just do it. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, in the process, like if you need any peace of mind, you are welcome to address me, and I'll do
Oh,
my best
thank
to
you.
help you out.
Thank you so much. It helps a lot. It's like, again, it's a great motivation. Thank you. And the question, um, you and I both seen great days of Tarakat Markazi in Andijan
Yes,
many decades ago, and what was it? Like late 90s,
late
right?
90s, late 90s.
Right, late 90s. And there was no internet in our homes. There was very
Mm-hmm.
little internet around. We had to wait for our to take turns to use them in this learning center, which was probably the only one for the whole Andijan region. And
Yes.
there was a library, which was also the only
Mm-hmm.
one for the whole region. And we would go and wait to read the books. There was no alternative. I myself would travel from Asakya for take a
Mm-hmm.
bus, walk to the bus station, then take a bus for 30 minutes, then walk from the bus station in Andijan to the center, and the same way back. So it would take me almost a day to make the trip to go and
Mm-hmm.
just to read a book. But now,
Mm-hmm.
at this time and age, when everything seems to be available online, why do people buy these books? This is the numbers you quoted. Yes, they are not like in thousands or let's say 10,000, but I'm impressed still. Like when you mention how many of these
Hmm.
books have been selling, that's impressive. What's the reason? Again, I must be pessimistic and would never think that
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
books be sold, especially for the language,
Okay.
the learning language, learning
Well,
English.
speaking from my personal perspective,
Mm-hmm.
nothing comes equal to feeling a real book. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if I have an opportunity, I try to buy and read every single book in the original language because the original language is the best. And thanks God, I'm fluent in 7 foreign languages, so I can read in very many languages, and I always try to purchase books in originals. However, there are some books which are available online and which I cannot purchase from Uzbekistan. So what I do is that I just take a copy, then I get it printed, and then I just get it binded. So as a result, I have a ready-made book. For myself personally, having a real book is much more valuable than having a copy online or e-version because I don't know, but I personally think that an e-book is not a book. For example, I never bought a Kindle, just with the idea that you may have 1000 books in that device. However, you don't feel those books.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, another reason for my books being sold is that the e version is not available online. And when some people ask for it, I deny that request. And I just say that if you
Mm-hmm.
want that book, just buy a hard copy. And
Mm-hmm.
a third reason maybe is that they are purchasing from the author directly, and many of them ask for an autograph. For example, if you decide to buy a book by Stephen King, hardly is it possible that you get his personal autograph. But now, as
Sure.
I'm not as popular as Stephen King, I can cover that demand. So whoever
Mm-hmm.
asks me for a book, for example, even if he's from Karagal, Pakistan, I can just send it through mail. And before sending, he says, Damla, please put your signature. And I ask that person's
Mm-hmm.
name and I just write like with my best wishes, etc., etc. So I believe that buying a book from the author with his personal autograph directed to yourself is much more valuable than just not paying that 25,000 sums and reading its e-version.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking about the perspective of your book again, if you manage to show the people that this book is really valuable and that it makes some change to the people who read it, then of course they will gladly buy the hard copy, even if they have an e-version. It's a fact.
I see. And I'm also now, it got me thinking that you don't run audio or video podcasts, you don't release videos, you don't share all that knowledge online in any other way either. Not ebook, no
Well, actually,
online
I
lesson as well.
do, and
On TV, I
I can.
remember
Yeah,
for schools, right?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I do, and in like using this opportunity, you might help me. You can just
Uh-huh.
share my Telegram channel's address if you
Okay.
want, and
Sure.
there
Definitely.
we have a schedule. Every Tuesday, I put the recordings of my online lessons, like speaking
Okay.
about grammar again, and as you said, like just sharing my knowledge every Thursday, like tomorrow, every Thursday at 8 p.m. Tashkent time, I have a live lesson about IELTS writing.
Great. Mm-hmm.
And every Saturday, I post a chapter of my book which I'm writing. And I'm
Uh-huh.
doing that because lots of people are, first of all, enjoying reading those parts, and they are suggesting lots of, well, they are finding mistakes for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saving myself some time because instead of just sitting and editing, I'm just letting the readers read, and most of them are finding many mistakes like spelling, punctuation, etc., and it's saving me a lot of time. So
I
I am
see.
sharing. And if you want, I can give you the address and you can use it yourself
Please,
and share with other
absolutely.
of your friends. Hopefully, it will be very useful for everyone.
Absolutely. I will place the link under the description as well. And it sounds like, yes, you're sharing, yes, you are providing some content, but it actually helps with the PR and marketing of your book. So it's genius. It's not that you're running
Yeah, and
full
actually,
scale course, right?
another
Mhm.
genius is that I don't pay for it.
You don't pay,
It-
or you don't get paid.
I don't
It's
pay for
free.
marketing. It's like free
Oh,
publicity.
that's right. Exactly.
I
Free
mean, I am
publicity. So,
sharing, and
mhm,
of course, I'm paying in a certain sense. Right? I'm devoting my time, I'm
your
devoting my
time.
efforts,
Yes.
etc. However, I'm just doing what I'm enjoying, and plus, more
Right.
people are joining me. And when I have to advertise someone, I already have the target audience.
Right. So your online presence doesn't in any way replace your book content. That's the
No, it
conclusion we
doesn't.
can make.
Yes,
So
yes.
perfect. Thank you so very much. I really enjoyed indeed getting all this wisdom from you. And if you could, before saying goodbye, mention those
Uh-huh.
6 or 7 languages you said,
Yeah.
please. And with
Well,
that, we say
first
goodbye.
is Uzbek. It is my native tongue.
Uh-huh.
Second is Russian. I already could speak fluently at the age of 6. Then comes English. I began to learn English in 1993. And if you remember that summer school with Kate Dunley
Yes.
and other Peace Corps volunteers, it
Jeffrey
was in
Olsen.
1997. Can you imagine? Like
7.
26 years ago. It was
Right.
like a
Unbelievable.
lifetime ago. Yeah. And
Exactly.
then when I got to university, I began to learn German. So I have like B2 level in German.
Wow.
Then
Mhm.
I in 2004 I went to Denmark. There I became fluent in Danish and Turkish. And I
Wow.
also, since my childhood, I have had some religious education. And what religious
True. Of
education without
course.
Arabic, right? So I'm
Of course.
proficient in Arabic grammar, vocabulary, writing and speaking, etc. And I know Farsi passively. I cannot write in
Okay.
Farsi, I cannot speak in Farsi, but if I read or if I listen, I can understand.
So that would be the 8th.
Yeah, but yeah, yes.
Wow. That is amazing. And I hope we'll talk again sometime soon. Maybe once your book is
Yeah,
published, and
it will be my
talk about
pleasure.
your yes, talk about your future plans, and maybe if you are taking this linguistics, it's not multilingual skills any further, and we can talk about the languages too. Maybe next time. I would love to.
Yes.
Thank you
Learning
so much.
languages and yeah, learning languages and learning specifically vocabulary are my favorite
Mm-hmm.
topics. So maybe sometime in future we will
So
discuss them too.
super. Thank you so much, Skanda,
You
and
are
you
more
have a
than welcome.
wonderful rest of the day. And
Okay.
I will see you around on Facebook, especially.
Okay.
And all the
Thank you very
best.
much,
The new
Inayathan.
book. You're welcome.
Likewise.
We'll be in touch.
You too.
We'll be in touch. Bye bye, everyone. See you next time.